It's not Mike McDaniel's 25th ranked scoring offense in the NFL this season, but how he got there that makes him my number one offensive coordinator candidate for the Washington Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. I'm David Harrison, your guy on the ground, credentialed member of the media covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA 9, also in writing for Commanders on SI, and I'm here with you 5 days a week. Coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, we are addressing Mike McDaniel's red flags. I'm going to tell you why he's the number one fit in the Commanders' search for a new offensive coordinator, but first, we have to talk about the first thing that goes into building successful organizations, people. And all of that is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And it's all brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Mike McDaniel was not available when we did our most recent ordering and discussion of offensive coordinator candidates. And don't get me wrong, we are going to talk about more offensive coordinator candidates, assuming we have time before a hire is made to do so and dive into more of these other coaches. But Mike McDaniel coming available on Thursday is actually going to push our first defensive coordinator evaluation episode down the line to tomorrow's episode, because we got to talk about Coach McDaniel in this one, because he is immediately our top name at the top of the offensive coordinator candidates list as far as I'm concerned. And the fact is that this is a people business, right? The Washington Commanders, the product is football, but the business is people, and people are not meant to be contained in a box. And that's one of the biggest reasons Mike McDaniel is my top option. So to catch up, people who don't know, Miami Dolphins originally had planned to keep Mike McDaniel. At least that was the story. He was going to be involved in their search for a new general manager. That was what he said in his end of season press conference. All those things leading us to all believe that he was going to be around for at least another year as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. However, on Thursday, it was revealed that the team was going to move on from him. They decided that they're going to go ahead and fire him. The assumption at the time of this recording has not been made confirmed or official or anything like that as of yet. But the assumption is that Coach Harbaugh from the Baltimore Ravens becoming available is basically what tipped the scales here, that the Miami Dolphins are going to be bringing in Harbaugh. McDaniel is now out, and so now he is available. He is going to get some head coaching attention. There is already a report of him getting at least one head coaching interview request out there. So there is a chance that Mike McDaniel takes another head coaching job. However, there's also an opportunity that as appealing as being a head coach can be in the National Football League, look, there's a possibility here that Mike McDaniel gets head coaching offers and opportunities and still says, listen, I'm going to go to the best situation for me. And the best situation for him may be an offensive coordinator somewhere. Why not Washington? So I think the biggest reason, or I don't want to say the biggest reason either, but just number one off the top of my list of why I think Mike McDaniel jumps to the top of this list is his adaptability. He doesn't believe that quarterback Jayden Daniels is a one-system quarterback, doesn't believe that Jayden needs to just do one type of thing, and that means that he will then have the ability to try and scheme up different things for Jayden to help Jayden reach the peak of his own potential. And that evidence comes in an April 2025 interview from a story that John Keim of ESPN wrote for ESPN.com. John went around to, I don't know about all the head coaches, but at least a good amount of head coaches at the league meetings last spring in Palm Beach, Florida. And he asked them about Jayden Daniels, their impression of his rookie year, all these types of things. And when he got to Mike McDaniel, Mike didn't praise Jayden's athleticism as much as he praised his adaptability and his flexibility. He said, quote, how he adapted to different systems and how he played with composure and extended plays, end quote, was really what stood out to him. But the really interesting thing here is that McDaniel also recounted to Keim all these years later how when he was in San Francisco, he remembered talking to then assistant general manager Adam Peters of the San Francisco 49ers, now the general manager of the Washington Commanders, about this freshman quarterback at Arizona State. That freshman quarterback at Arizona State was Jayden Daniels. McDaniel said he'd been tracking him just ever since then. Throughout his time at Arizona State, his transfer to LSU, Obviously, his couple of seasons there at LSU, his Heisman Trophy winning season, so on and so forth. Obviously saw what he did as a rookie in 2024 as well, leading McDaniel to tell Keim, quote, he's just super promising. You guys can breathe a sigh of relief, end quote. So Mike McDaniel clearly, one, believes, right? When we talk about the people business, the people businesses, all people businesses are built on trust. Every organization, at the end of the day, whether you're going to be strong, whether you're going to be weak, really whittles it all back down to trust. If there's one thing that you just have to have in a successful organization, that's the one thing it is. That's one thing that it is. Mike McDaniel clearly trusts that Jayden Daniels knows how to and can be successful in multiple schemes, multiple systems. Look, he did it in college. I know that a lot of people are worried about, oh, great, Jayden Daniels is going to go to a new system in his third year in the NFL and all these things. Jayden Daniels went through multiple different systems during his college career and was able to succeed, relatively speaking, at least in every single one of them. So this isn't going to be necessarily new territory for Jayden in learning a new scheme. The key is going to be for this offensive coordinator to, one, be able to come in and understand where Jayden's coming from. Two, understand where they want to go together. Three, understand the plan of getting them there. You can't go from A to Z right away. You got to hit B, C. You can't even go from A to F. You got to hit B, C, D, and E all the way between before you can get there. That's what Mike McDaniel's doing. Doing that will then build the trust between he and Jayden will become trusting of Mike McDaniel. I'm confident if, of course, the hire comes to happen. So adaptability, absolutely massive to have, obviously, in the player, but incredibly important to have in the coach, and for the coach to understand how valuable that adaptability is. Clearly, as that's one of the top things he recognized about this quarterback, adaptability is a big thing in the brain of Mike McDaniel. Reason number two, staff synchronization. We talk about trust in people, trust between the quarterback and the coordinator. How about the trust of the coach in the coaching staff around him? There's a personal element to this, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with a personal element being involved, because Dan Quinn showed us, if anything, that he is going to and is willing to forego those personal connections for what's right with the team by firing Joe Witt Jr., by first replacing him, first of all, because that's embarrassing. But second of all, going on to firing him, or quote unquote moving on from Joe Witt Jr. He showed us that he's willing to do what he says. He says all the time, the hard right over the easy wrong. It's a very common saying, cliche, whatever, but it's a very valuable leadership tool that not a lot of people can execute. Dan Quinn not only has said it multiple times, but he's shown it multiple times, including in the dismissal or firing or moving on from his longtime good friend, really good friend, Joe Witt Jr. So this hire, it could have a predication of that personal connection, but bottom line, it's only going to be a part of the equation, and that trust is going to help them facilitate everything that's going on to it. Where does that trust come from? Mike McDaniel, if you don't know, has been very, very open with his struggles with alcoholism. He's a recovering alcoholic in the sense that everybody I've never been alcoholic, so my understanding is that alcoholism is never something you're just done with. It's something you're always kind of battling. So Mike McDaniel credits DQ with not just being there during his sober years, but also helping to save his career during the whole thing. Said, quote, Dan Quinn holds a special place in my heart. I think he was there at ground zero when I became sober. I'll be forever indebted to him, end quote. That's something that Mike McDaniel said ahead of the Miami Dolphins Washington Commanders game in Madrid, Spain, just this past season. Dan Quinn, ahead of that same game, said this about Mike McDaniel, quote, I've known Mike to be an excellent coach. He can process things so quickly. It's no surprise to see that his offense can throw the ball quickest. They can have the fastest motions. That's Mike to a T, where he can just think so quickly on it. When Mike left Atlanta into San Francisco, I knew he'd make an impact there. And then you'd see that during his time in Miami. And so the work with the quarterback, with the offense, that's where he's at his best. He's quick, and he can get to the next play quickly, to the next concept. So, yeah, man, I really enjoyed working with Mike. He's one of my favorite coaches, end quote. Very strong endorsement by Dan Quinn of Mike McDaniel. Very strong personal connection between Mike McDaniel and Dan Quinn. So it's a little bit personal. It's a little bit professional. But all of it shows that this unit, this staff, would have a very strong basis of trust. We talk about inner circles all the time, and how sometimes those can be bad, right? You can be in bad inner circles. But when you're in an inner circle that starts with professional respect first, it can always be successful. And that's what you're getting out of Mike McDaniel and Dan Quinn, and what would lead into building that trust between Mike McDaniel and Jayden Daniels. And the third reason is the process. That's what gets us here to this moment, because the evidence that the people are going to be able to work together, build that trust, is certainly there. But what gets built on top of that trust is ultimately what's going to determine if Mike McDaniel and the Washington Commanders could be successful. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you in part by Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel a little bit overwhelming between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month. It's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? My wife does. She does a really great job of it for our household. I don't. That's where Rocket Money comes in. The personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and it cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. You've seen those commercials. People are like, oh, I didn't have multiple DoorDash accounts. Yeah, I'm that guy. I actually had, like, people look at those and like, that doesn't happen in real life. I can tell you right now, it happens in real life. I had multiple DoorDash accounts at one time. So I was shocked when Rocket Money showed me that. And of course, I was grateful and appreciative of it and was able to cancel it right there in the app. It even consolidates your checking, savings, loans, and investments into a single dashboard. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders also brought to you in part by FanDuel. The NFL wildcard round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. So even though the Washington Commanders aren't playing in the playoffs, you can play in the playoffs, because every day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. And right now, every NFL game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for you inside the app. Every single game day, you're going to get a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts so you can apply them to the bets you like the most. You open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boost you want to apply to which wagers. It lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching, as we're talking about here on this episode. The boost gives you more juice on the bets you already like instead of forcing you into bets that you may not feel comfortable with. So you make your picks and apply those boosts. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day, starting this weekend with the wild card round. Thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day to the everydayers that come through for every single episode. A special thank you for coming through for yet another one. And thank you to all of you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the world. And if you are an everydayer, the Everydayer Club is built specifically for you. The all access tier is something that's been really cool. I'm uploading locker room audio. We had a lot of interviews end of the season. We've already uploaded Jayden Daniels, Tress Way. I've got a whole lot more audio files that I've got to upload in there that you're going to get exclusive access to. There's also a newsletter after every episode. And some of you have asked me about merch in the past. You can get 15% discount to the Locked On merch store. And there's so much more, honestly, on top of it all. LockedOnCommanders.supercast.com. You can join every month. You can join for a year at a time. However you want to do it. You can also find a link to that in the show notes, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're in audio, however you're doing it today. So the evidence that the people can work, right? Mike McDaniel, Dan Quinn, they've got that history. Mike McDaniel's history and how he approaches the game, approaches coaching, the fact that he's been following Jayden Daniels since he was a freshman at Arizona State. All the evidence that the people can make this work, certainly there. Jayden Daniels and his poise, his resiliency, without a doubt, I think he's going to be able to click with Mike McDaniel certainly really well if he is indeed Coach McDaniel, that is the new offensive coordinator. But trust is just the start. It's the most important thing. You can't have anything else on top of it without it, but it is just the start. It's the base level. It's the foundation, whatever you want to call it, right? So we have 3 criteria, 3 areas we're looking at for the next offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders that we want these candidates to fit. And then we basically say, okay, which ones fit it the most, which ones fit it the best. And that's how we make our ranking of where our candidates lie. These criteria, these topics or these areas that we want these coaches to fit into don't just come out of nowhere. They come from Dan Quinn and they come from Adam Peters themselves, the person or people. I mean, Adam Peters says that Dan Quinn is going to be the deciding factor on the coaching staff, but we also know from Dan Quinn that they talk about everything. So Dan Quinn's not going to just hire a dude and be like, hey, by the way, AP, this is our new offensive coordinator. Get to know him. No, there's going to be conversations that are had. The good news is, again, both DQ, both AP know Mike McDaniel very, very well, have had success with him in different levels at different organizations. So criteria number 1 was the teacher, right? And again, these criteria don't necessarily come in any specific weighted category, in my opinion, but if, whatever weighted opinion you have on each one can certainly be there. The teacher, is Mike McDaniel going to be able to teach? Well, something that Dan Quinn said, again, in his comments about Mike McDaniel was, quote, the work with the quarterback, That's where he is at his best, end quote. So an offensive coordinator who knows how to not just draw up crazy plays, try to exploit defensive weaknesses, all these things, but work with his quarterback, that is going to be absolutely key. And there, in Dan Quinn's own words, from his own experiences, you see that there. Mike McDaniel, again, going back to San Francisco, has been a part of a lot of staffs that worked with a lot of different quarterbacks and had really good success with different styles of quarterbacks as well as different names of quarterbacks. You go to Miami, you really only have the one. But look, from my understanding, Quinn Ewers actually looked a lot better than people expected as a Miami Dolphins quarterback. Not like trying to say that's like the feather in the cap of Mike McDaniel's hat per se, but again, it's just another little data point. So you see his passion for it. You see his passion for finding talent, right? His again, the story of him watching Jayden Daniels from the time he was a freshman. There was actually a video tweeted out, on Thursday, as everybody started talking about potentially Mike McDaniel coming to Washington, that showed him at a quarterback camp and working with quarterbacks, man. And I'll tell you, just the way that he was talking to these young quarterbacks and describing the game and the process of going through reads and procedures and all this stuff, you just tell that Mike McDaniel is a coach that really loves what he does, really loves that part of the game, being that teacher. So you love seeing that from him. And I think that's something that you can feel confident in moving forward. Second criteria was that structural support around the quarterback of the offense, and that's the run game. Look, even in a 2025 NFL season that eventually got Mike McDaniel fired, whether it's directly because of the season or directly because the ownership saw what they think is greener grass on the other side of a different hire, the Dolphins ran the ball 432 times versus 479 passes. That's a very balanced offense, which for a team that only won 7 games, you would probably expect, well, you're trailing in a good amount of games, you're probably going to be passing the ball quite a bit. And they averaged 4.7 yards per carry. Even once the Miami Dolphins got to a situation where people basically knew the only way they can significantly hurt you on a consistent basis is on the ground, which it got there at some point because I don't cover the Dolphins, and even I knew that about their offense. They're still able to churn out nearly 5 yards per carry. So when you look at what Chris Rodriguez Jr., you look at what Ja'Cory Croskey-Merritt were able to do when the Washington Commanders did lean on the run game this season, you get a coordinator who not only wants to lean on the run game because he truly wants to, but also is skilled at designing things that accentuate each individual player's skill set. I think you can get really excited about that. He fits that control the clock mantra that we heard in those end of season press conferences with Dan Quinn and Adam Peters. So criteria number 2, put a green check mark in there. Criteria number 3, the explosiveness factor. And I think that, if you know anything about Mike McDaniel's offense, it can be explosive. The most explosive offense of the decade came in 2023, the last decade, I should say, came in 2023. It was the Miami Dolphins, scored a ton of nearly 500 points or something like that, like just a crazy amount of offense. Now, the Dolphins in 2025 did lose Tyreek Hill. They lost Tua Tagovailoa's versatility, I should say. We'll get into that here in just a little bit in the conversation. But that desire and effort to create new plays, create new ways to get the offense rolling never went away. He didn't shrink into himself just because there were challenges. And I think that's kind of the biggest part of Mike McDaniel's process that is really kind of impressive. So with Mike McDaniel going up to the top, again, I put him a shade above Brian Daboll, largely due to a better track record with what I think is a Jayden Daniels type of quarterback. Brian Daboll is number 2, but again, you could call him 1A if you want to. He's developed quarterbacks well. You look at Josh Allen, Daniel Jones' best year, because that's been thrown in my face in a couple of comments. I know his passer rating was best in Indianapolis this year, but he didn't finish the season, and he had thrown 5 interceptions in his last 5 games before Daniel Jones was injured and lost for the rest of the season, so certainly was on a downward trajectory there towards the end of the year. So to me, Brian Daboll gave Daniel Jones his best full season, got him paid by the New York Giants, which led to a lot of other bad personnel decisions, which are not on the head coach. They're on the GM, who still, for some reason, has a job there. Third, I've got Kevin Stefanski. I think you got a high floor there, lower ceiling, but a little bit more steady. And then fourth, I've got Tommy Rees, just because the lack of experience. I think the scheme exposure has been really good for Tommy Rees, but I think that Dan Quinn, Adam Peters are looking for someone with a little bit of experience and someone they know a little bit better. But if Mike is so perfect, if Mike is going to be our number 1 guy on this list, why did he even get fired in the first place? Can't just be because of Coach Harbaugh. We'll dive into that next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're doing that thanks to our friends over at Ultimate Quarterback Football legend. The draft pick positions are set, and so many teams are looking for a new franchise quarterback this offseason. If you've ever thought about becoming a pro quarterback, getting drafted first overall by maybe the Washington Commanders, well, now you can do exactly that because there is a mobile game for you called Ultimate Quarterback Football Legend. And in this game, you step into the cleats of the number one draft pick quarterback, and it's your job then to lead the team to greatness, help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. It is the number one quarterback career mode game in your mobile app store, and it introduces the most realistic environment with full career control, contracts, training, upgrades, chemistry, evolve your own teammates, and you give input to the GM on roster moves, and then you can play the actual games in 2D, rise through the ranks, and become a pro football legend. So head over to ultimate-quarterback.com. That's ultimate-quarterback.com for your or search Ultimate QB in your app store. So that's quarterbacks QB, ultimate-QB.com. Again, ultimate-QB.com. And we got something special for you. Use the promo code Locked On, all caps, all one word, in the game store, and you get a free boost at the start of your career. Again, Ultimate Quarterback Football Legend QB1. It's your legacy. Mike McDaniel isn't perfect, but who is? Find me a perfect coach, find me a perfect person, and you're not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to give you because I'm not going to give you anything because it doesn't exist, right? The Miami Dolphins did not do well this season. They finished 25th in scoring, averaged less than 21 points per game in 2025. And obviously, Mike McDaniel, the offensive-minded head coach, has to take a lot of that on the chest. Now, what are some of the things that went on in Miami? I think the most structural thing from a strategic standpoint, from a tactical standpoint, and honestly, this is something that all the way up until Thursday morning when we found out Mike McDaniel was being fired by the Dolphins was something I was looking forward to seeing. What do the Dolphins do in this situation? Because it's unfortunate, but when you get down to the business of it, it had to happen. And that is the Miami Dolphins moving on from Tua Tagovailoa. Like, even if they hire Coach Harbaugh, hire whatever GM Harbaugh wants, you have to move on from Tua Tagovailoa, because I think having Tua Tagovailoa as the starting quarterback in the Miami Dolphins offense is the biggest thing that basically tied Mike McDaniel's hands. And I'm not saying that they would have been world beaters without that, but I think they would have been significantly better. Certainly not the 25th ranked scoring offense in the NFL. Tua Tagovailoa in 2025 had his career low rushing attempt pace. I put it that way because he had 20 total carries in 2025, 17 total carries in 2024. However, he played enough games in 2025 that, again, like, his per game carry rates was lower in 2025 than 2024, if you're following me. McDaniel had to significantly shrink his offense. His quarterback had to significantly shrink the way he plays the game of football just to keep Tua Tagovailoa healthy. If you remember, Tua Tagovailoa suffered several severe concussions, and it was after the third severe concussion that, if you go look at Tua Tagovailoa's usage and you go look at his rush rates and all that stuff, there's a significant drop in the amount of times that Tua Tagovailoa uses his legs, and that is a significant drop in the way that Mike McDaniel can use his quarterback's diversity. Mike McDaniel is a quarterback, or is a coach that likes to use all those things. Then you lose Tyreek Hill on top of it. So you lose the quarterback that gives you all this ability behind and at the line of scrimmage, and even as a runner going forward. Then you lose your wide receiver that takes the top off opposing offenses and really stretches them out. That leaves you with Jaylen Waddle, who I think is really good, but he's not, you know what I mean? He's not like this world-beating wide receiver that just threatens every single defense all by himself. No, he's a good part of a good system, but that's about it. You have, again, Tyreek Hill played fewer games, by the way, in 2025 than Terry McLaurin did. So think about that. We talked about the significance of losing Terry for as much as this team did in 2025. They lost Tyreek Hill even longer on top of a quarterback that was literally playing against himself. And we talked about this with Jayden Daniels. Tua Tagovailoa is having to go out there and play a brand of football that is not Tua Tagovailoa's brand of football. He's not playing like Tua, and Mike McDaniel is having to coach a quarterback who's no longer playing like himself. What does every coach tell every athlete? I want you playing 100% your game. Literally, Tua is not doing that because he has to protect his health, and literally Mike McDaniel is having to coach. So again, that's a very significant issue in this whole thing. But what did Mike McDaniel do? He didn't just try to say, we're running the same system, we're just going to do it, and we're just going to do it better every single week. Unlike what we saw in Washington, he countered by using the play clock more, being more methodical, leaning on that run game, which, by the way, finished 4th in the NFL in yards per carry, shortening the game, giving his defense less exposure while trying to find ways to get production out of his offense, literally trying to manufacture some complementary football that did not work, right? The results did not work. We got it. The process, however, is what you're really looking at. Now, the Jayden Daniels difference here, he's not going to have that same problem with Jayden. Now, you want to prevent it from becoming a problem down the road, right? So Mike McDaniel, I think we've heard Dan Quinn talk about it. We've heard Jayden Daniels talk about it, understanding the importance of protecting yourself, not letting yourself take too many hits and all these other things. Well, Mike McDaniel can not only come in and echo those sentiments to Jayden, he can do it from a place of experience. He can share, listen, dude, I saw Tua go through this. I saw what Tua had to do in his career because of these injuries. You don't want to get to that point. It means a little bit different, a little bit something when you can come from a place of experience. Mike McDaniel now has that experience. And then finally, I go back to a quote where Mike McDaniel said, quote, I might as well get mad at Thunder. Now, what he was talking about when he said that, he was asking about being angry about officiating. And he said, there's just some things in this game that you can't control. There are plays that are over, and when they're over, they're just over, man. You move past them. Mike McDaniel has that cool, calm, collected approach that I think Jayden Daniels will mesh with really quickly and really well, and it'll help them kind of stay even keel without getting too high, too low. So again, the results were absolutely not there in 2025 for the Miami Dolphins. They've fallen short in some other seasons too of where they wanted to be and where they thought they would be as well. But the process of successful offense was in place. And that's what we're looking for Mike McDaniel to do here in Washington. We're not looking at him to lead a franchise. We're not looking at him to bring the entire locker room together as a unit and all those things. That's Dan Quinn's job. That's the culture job that's already been done, continues to be done. We're asking Mike McDaniel to draw up the most successful offense he can for the weapons that he's gotten. And the process of doing that was there in Miami. If teams base their hires based on simply results, not processes, then Bill Belichick never would have coached the New England Patriots. Andy Reid never would have gone to the Kansas City Chiefs. Hell, the San Diego Chargers once hired an offensive coordinator out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization that was the 25th scoring offense the year prior, 1979. 3 years later, that coach was a Super Bowl winner by the name of Joe Gibbs. It's about people. It's about processes, and Mike McDaniel has the skill, the personality, and the approach, along with the offensive mind, born from the Kyle Shanahan tree, which can give the Washington Commanders defense everything it can handle to get ready for NFL opponents moving into the next season. And because of it, to me, he is the clear-cut number one candidate for the Washington Commanders offense coordinator position if he doesn't take a head coaching job. That'll be out there for him. That's going to do it for today's episode. Next time on Locked On Commanders, we hope to get to our defensive coordinator rankings for the first time here this week. But the news cycle is what the news cycle is. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you're following Locked On Commanders so you can get all the latest episodes, even if we have to pivot like we did today. In the meantime, you can also follow me on X at DHarrison82, on Instagram at DHarrison_82. And if you never miss an episode, again, the Everydayer Club, perfect for you. We've got a Discord there. We've got an exclusive members-only Discord for the Everydayer Club, where it's a group chat, trying to get some group chat conversations. What do you think of Mike McDaniel? What's your ranking for the offensive coordinators? Get in there, talk with me. I'm in there, talk with other fans. Let's have this conversation in real time. Again, go to Discord. You can have it on your app. You can have it on your phone, whatever you want to do. LockedOnCommanders.supercast.com to sign up for that Everydayer Club today. For your second listen of the day, check out the Locked On NFL podcast twice per day. Tony Wiggins in the afternoon, Tyler Rowland in the morning on YouTube or wherever you're listening to today's show. To the Everydayers, I see you. I appreciate you every single day. And I thank you again for coming through again today. Until next time, everybody out there, please stay safe. Be kind to one another. We'll talk again real soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.